So we adopted a new single market strategy 2 weeks ago, probably, no? 28th October, I think it was. I mean, the measures themselves are not earth-shattering for their impact because we are in the political environment that we are, but there is a shift in the approach that I think is important. In the sense, I think this time we moved away from a purely legalistic approach of the internal market, saying let's remove particular barriers for particular services or particular goods, and rather say what kind of economy do we want, and what do we need to do to have the kind of economy that we want. And so what you will see is an approach where we say, okay, what are the problems? Our firms are small and they don't grow. How can we help them grow? And so there's some measures to say, how can we facilitate small firms to go outside? And it's about paperwork because it does come down to details in the end. But the vision is, the goal is broader than that. We want our firms to be able to scale up. We want new business models to be able to form and also scale up in Europe. And so there's this initiative on, okay, let's think about the collaborative economy and make sure it's not a fragmented landscape. Let's look at the importance of services, exactly for the reason that you said, is the knowledge that we understand we're going to go back in integration if we don't allow for services also to scale up and operate at a pan-European level. So at this point, again, we're facilitating the scale up, but also there is a review foreseen to look at the national regulations and some regulated professions to see if some of the things should not be removed. That is more difficult to do, but it's being done, particularly in the macroeconomic surveillance of the Commission, which has a microeconomic dimension now where recommendations are issued, and some of them ask and require the liberalization or the deregulation of some of the services. There's also the will, for instance, the retail sector has been identified as being particularly rigid in Europe, and so there's an attempt to look at those. So the approach is more, what are the big bottlenecks here and how do we remove them? Also interestingly, it pinpoints an example, the construction sector. And where, again, that's an important sector, the internal market is not working, and the approach there is also say, let's look at everything that's not working in that sector. Insurance issues. But it goes even beyond, it's even like the materials, the pre-circulation of new materials, the recycling issues. So there's a very broad approach of all the dimensions that need to be touched to do that. Now, what is the impact? Is that enough? I should say yes, it's enough. But I'll say probably no. It's a good step. But I've spent, because I'm in the economic analysis unit, and we've spent a lot of time looking at investment in Europe and why we've, on a long trend, I mean, we've been 2% below trend investment for more than a year. We're losing capital, basically. We're barely replacing what we have. And so we've been asking, why are we not investing? And of course, there's subdued demand, there's the deleveraging, all these financial explanations. There's uncertainty, which stops. But there's also, there's just sometimes an inability to innovate in Europe. We have found, we expect innovation to come from the people we know. And that I will pick up a lot of what has been said earlier. Europe is still very corporatist in a medieval way. We like the people we know. And so when you look at policies of innovation in member states, and they translate even European innovation policies, we like to evolve the people we have. That's why we don't have new firms. We don't like the people we don't know. We don't even want them to be there. And so the internal market has done a great job in bringing competition, and competition is important because still in Europe, very inefficient firms are allowed to survive in many places because they're still protected from competition. And so bringing competition, and they're protected in their own environment, and bringing competition from, other people's devil they know, devil they know, it's a good thing because the best devil, the most efficient firm wins. So the internal market has done a good job, in particularly in some sectors, in bringing in other firms from other countries and put that pressure to increase the efficiencies. But what we haven't done is bring firms that came out of nowhere. So the devil we don't know, that the devil that nobody knows, you know, and that's why we missed the digital revolution in a way, because no one was doing it before, and we decided that it would be our telecom sector that should do that, and we didn't allow anybody else. And these people didn't do that. They didn't do internet, they did networks, but they didn't do software. And so we missed that boat because we didn't allow entire new companies. I think that is a problem for Europe. And so we need, in the internal market, we need to build a space where new things can happen, and when I say new firms, and in that sense new people would probably be welcome too, if we accepted new people and new ideas. But we don't like new, and we certainly don't like disruptive in Europe. So every change has to be very managed, and usually using the firms and the people that are already there. And I think in times of very disruptive technological change, that is a problem for us. So beyond the internal market, we need a lot more in terms of how do we put the space, build the space for new things to happen. The value chains have changed, and they're a lot more scattered than before. So you have more players, they're more specialized, and they need to come in different combinations. So when you want to upgrade to a new technology, it's pointless if you do it alone. You need a whole bunch of people to invest with you. And sometimes people are not sure that's going to happen, so they don't do it, because they're not sure, you know, that they can be able to link. So I think many of them have come, and what they ask for is a clear direction. So in that sense, there is a policy role to say, this is where we see, but I'm not sure it's for the states or for the European Commission, but somebody needs at some point to give a direction. This is how we see this sector evolving. This is how public procurement can be organized or be targeted. This is how we will plan our cities, or this is how we will plan our, and so you give a direction so people have some confidence that they can coordinate into a direction, and that is needed for a big transformation to happen. Now, how do you achieve this coordination? That's the question we have. The Commission has not thought about industrial policy in those terms that much. It's starting at a very micro level, but I think there's a demand from large sectors of industry who are on the sidelines with all this technology saying, where do I go? And they just need a signal coming from somewhere saying, we're all going this way. Now, hopefully, you know, it's a bit bottom up, because you don't want to be wrong on those things. But for whatever path you take, there needs to be some coordination, because there's just a lot of people involved who are taking risks, you know, and they cannot do it alone.